Wish TV. All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage, exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders, expert analysis on critical legislation. From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Central Indiana. Wish TV is now live on YouTube TV and Hulu Live, offering more hours of local programming than any other station. Search for Wish TV or look for CW8 on both YouTube TV and Hulu Live to find us. Watch local news, sports, and lifestyle shows live from Wish TV. You can still catch Wish TV free over the air or stream it live on wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile apps. Wish TV, available in more places for the latest news, weather, and sports.
Don't let high golf rates drive you out of bounds. Save big with the Wish TV Great Golf Club Card.
Central Indiana's largest golf club card membership is back for the 8th season with more courses than ever before. Save over 75% on tee times at 27 Central Indiana golf courses. All you need is the Wish TV Great Golf Club Card. Cards are valid for the entire 2026 golf season.
Great courses, great savings. Score your Great Golf Club Card today.
Now, from Wish TV, your local news source. This is All Indiana Politics.
Good morning and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist in for Phil Sanchez. Indiana will feel the oil shock from the war with Iran for months, even if the conflict ends quickly. That's the conclusion from a Ball State economist. Michael Hicks is the director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University. He's also a Gulf War veteran. He tells me Indiana is even more sensitive to oil prices than most states, and not because of our gas tax. And joining us now is Ball State University economics professor Michael Hicks. Professor, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's good to be with you.
Why is the Strait of Hormuz so important?
The Straits of Hormuz move about 20% of the world's crude oil supply, and about 40 to 50% of other critical products such as that are involved in agriculture in the United States and Brazil. So they affect the global price of oil if those are closed for any period of time.
I need to call on your military experience for a moment. Why is it that Iran is still able to block the strait even though its naval and air fleets have been effectively eliminated?
Right. The Straits of Hormuz are very small, about less than 25 kilometers, so you can see across them with a pair of binoculars. The transnavigational passage is even narrower, and so it's very easy for a ground force firing wire-guided missiles or operating FPV drones or targeted drones to intercept an oil tanker, which is a pretty soft target moving through that area. So it's very easy to interdict the oil shipment, and even if the targetry isn't great, the owners of the ships are very reluctant to expose them to that sort of damage, and the crewmen don't want to get killed passing through the strait. So even if the straits were fully open with military armed guard, it's still going to boost the insuring costs and the wages that you're going to have to pay for people to do that. And there's going to be a higher rate of return on the risky capital that the owners are moving through the straits.
The United States is now the world's largest producer of oil by far. The Energy Information Administration says that last year we produced 22% of the world's oil. So why are gas prices rising here?
Right. So petroleum is a global commodity. It's sold everywhere. We export petroleum. Some places we import it. It's just it's like a big global bathtub. And so if the level of the bathtub drops, it affects that level everywhere in the world, not just in the countries that may be more dependent upon imports from Iran or Saudi Arabia or Kuwait. And so here in the United States, we're seeing the natural effect of oil prices rising to about $100 a barrel, up from the high 60s, low 70s, so that we're seeing prices now flirt with $4 a gallon here in Indiana. And at $100 a gallon, probably we're looking at, in the next couple of weeks, oil prices being in the $4.25 to $4.50 a gallon range for the unleaded, the cheap stuff.
What role does Indiana's gas tax play in the prices that we're seeing?
Well, our gas taxes come in two forms. One's just an excise tax, pennies per gallon. That is unaffected by the price. The second part is the sales tax, and it's 7%. So as gas prices rise, we collect more taxes. So it certainly makes the experience at the pump a little bit more expensive. But for every dollar increase in gas prices, the taxes that we pay go up about 7 cents. So it's a small part of the overall cost of buying gas.
Is Indiana more or less particularly vulnerable to oil price shocks relative to the rest of the country?
Over the long run, we're more sensitive for a couple of reasons. One is we're among the highest commuting states because we have so many people that are driving to urban areas from rural areas to work. We have among the longest commutes in the country. So that just dents the pocketbook of Hoosiers who would otherwise be spending that money on other restaurants or buying clothes in the state. And then we're a manufacturing intensive state. Manufacturing products that we specialize in are big consumers of gasoline. So if gas prices remain high, the demand for automobiles, transportation equipment is going to be dented by that as households are sort of deferring consumption or thinking about buying a more energy efficient vehicle down the road.
Does simply pressing other Gulf countries to produce more oil solve the problem?
No, not really, because just the geography of the Gulf, most of the oil is moving out through the Straits of Hormuz. The other problem is that none of these, we're producing at near record level. We've been at record level since 2022, 2023. Each new year, we're pumping like crazy in the U.S. Spinning that up is going to take many, many months, or years. And so the production levels that could increase in the other oil exporting states, Venezuela, Russia, the United States in particular, aren't going to be able to fill a 20% gap in this year, probably not even 2027.
All the focus has been on prices that consumers are paying at the pump, but does this also affect fuels such as diesel, aviation fuel, maritime fuel, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it affects everything. I always ask my intro students to tell me what products that you can buy that aren't affected by gasoline prices, and the answer is, nobody's ever been able to come up with one. So everything is affected. I think diesel's $5.25 now. I saw yesterday. That's going to affect the cost of goods being shipped on top of the tariffs that we're already experiencing. Airplane flights are going to go up astronomically. The cost of fuel are a major part of their costs. And over the next 6 months, the shock that we've had now, even if it stops, if oil prices or the war ends magically tomorrow, the oil price shock, the damage to the infrastructure is going to keep oil prices raised for many months. And the pass through to consumers is going to take place really from right now up until at least midsummer. So it's a sort of durable shock, even if everything were to end today and we were to start fixing the damaged infrastructure in the Persian Gulf.
That was something else I wanted to get into is how do fuel prices affect the prices of other goods throughout the rest of the economy, including here in Indiana?
Right. So it just makes everything more expensive to produce. And to move and to deliver. So it's more expensive for food to get to the grocery store. It's more expensive to plant the food. It's more expensive to process the food. It's more expensive to heat and cool the facility that you have because all these prices tend to move together. So it's not just oil that's being affected because oil is a substitute for something else, electricity, other energy sources. They all eventually move together. So when you see an oil price shock like we're seeing now, which could get much worse, you're seeing that also going to affect all other types of energy prices that then bleed over into everything, a trip to Disney, the cost of tickets at Holiday World, the price of a meal at a restaurant in downtown Indy. So it's a broad economic shock we're experiencing right now.
How soon do you expect we'll start seeing those secondary economic impacts? And then conversely, returning to our previous point, if the war were to end quickly, how long would it take for those oil prices to return to pre-war levels?
So if the war, let's take the best case scenario, the war ended, there was regime change tomorrow, It's going to take a couple of years to fix all the infrastructure that's been damaged. It's going to take several weeks for oil prices to get back down in the $60, $70 range. So we could be in the gas prices in the low $3 in a couple of 3 weeks. The problem is that the war doesn't seem likely to end immediately. And so on the flip side is that we would see if the war is extended for 6, 8, 12 months, with the Iranians trying to impose a cost on the globe for this war, then we could see that extend out for years, particularly if there's further damage to the oil infrastructure in the Persian Gulf, Karg Island, and all the other suppliers in the region.
Michael Hicks is a professor of economics at Ball State University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, the governor announces a major push to bring life sciences jobs to Indiana. I'll explain how much money is on the table. Welcome back. The state will set aside $1 billion in incentives for life sciences companies over the next 10 years. Governor Mike Braun says he wants to attract more than 100,000 new jobs. The plan uses about 1/3 of the Indiana Economic Development Corporation's existing incentive portfolio. The governor says he wants to build on Indiana's life sciences sector.
This is the first time we're designating it towards a particular part of our economy because this region has stepped up to do the things we want them to do to make sure we're going to put this kind of commitment behind it.
The plan sets aside $1 billion in performance incentives over 10 years, specifically for industries such as animal health, biotechnology, or human therapeutics. Companies including Eli Lilly, Elanco, and Roche say they plan to participate. So do Purdue and IU. To claim the credits, companies will have to create jobs that make at least 125% of a county's average wage. The governor and his team say that's the same standard companies already have to meet.
So as the new businesses come in or businesses expand here, we're going to hold that as a guideline and make sure they're performing against that in terms of the jobs that they're creating. And they won't get those incentives unless those jobs do get created.
The Indiana Economic Development Corporation divides the state into 15 economic regions. Braun says the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority will coordinate the effort in the Indy metro area. Fisher's Mayor Scott Fadness chairs the group.
What this does is it gives us a story, it gives us alignment, right? If you think about it, before, as Secretary Adams said, if we were being reactionary, now we can be proactive. When we're out identifying what are those companies that are not in the ecosystem today, when we call on them, we have a story to tell.
Braun says the state will target high-paying jobs in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM fields. But he says this will fuel non-STEM job growth as well.
So when you talk about those kinds of jobs that don't need a STEM degree, there are more of them that generally come along with anything that even needs a lot of STEM degrees. It's going to be balanced going forward.
Coming up, Indiana's best political team on the political impact of rising oil prices.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Wish TV.
And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Lindsey Hake and Republican Whitley Yates. Welcome back. Let's begin with the fuel price issue stemming from the Iran conflict. Whitley, we just heard this price spike will take some time to work out once the war ends, whenever that happens. At least from where we sit right now, how much pressure is this putting on Congress and on the Trump administration?
I think it's putting a lot of pressure on Congress and the Trump administration to come to a resolution when it comes to Iran and to create clarity for the American people on the direction and path that we're moving in. And as we are moving towards the midterms, the price of gas and how people feel usually are directly shown at the ballot box. And so there are some implications for the administration, but also for the everyday American person that is experiencing this type of hike in prices when we see the affordability of things going up.
I want to follow up on the electoral issue. Is between now and November enough time for these things to work themselves out, or could that still be a problem?
I think it could definitely still be a problem, and it will be up to states to then make the decisions necessary to mitigate what's happening globally so that it doesn't impact what's happening on a local level within their state.
Lindsay, I want to let you jump in on this as well. And also, does this undercut Republicans' cost of living arguments?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the only thing right now, and if to answer the question you were just posed, November isn't enough time to get this out of the runway, to get away from the issue. This will remain an issue for Hoosiers, for Americans, probably until we come out of not just the Iran conflict or Iran war, but also affordability as we've seen it happen in the past decade. I mean, this is really an issue that's culminated for the past decade's worth of time after utility increase after utility increase for cost of living, groceries, what have you. I realize the president talked a lot about how prices were lowered during the State of the Union address, but you've still got a scenario here where all of a sudden, not only do you have a giant conflict unfolding on the world stage, but you also have conflict at the kitchen table for each Hoosier, each American facing, okay, I'm going to have to expand my budget for my car getting simply to work every day. You just heard Dr. Hicks say, not only do we have a disproportionate impact here in Indiana because we have a longer commute, we have more people commuting, we have a higher, we have a economy that depends on that. And that affects Hoosiers first, and that's going to be a problem.
Let's say with national issues that have a local impact, TSA agents are still working without pay. About half a dozen have quit at the airport here in Indianapolis. Democrats are holding up funding over ICE funding, but ICE agents are getting paid through money that was set aside in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Lindsay, is this the wrong fight?
Yeah, no, never the wrong fight to pay people what they're worth, especially our government workers, especially TSA agents, which are I would argue, on the front line of making sure that we have a safe environment to fly and to travel and for commerce to unfold the way it does here in America. But I'll tell you, I'm very thankful that the air traffic controllers aren't affected by this. They are funded. But that does not mean that it's never the right time to argue for a better paid TSA staffer. And that's unfortunately not happening right now. I'm surprised that only a dozen quit. I'm surprised it's not more.
Whitley, does the fact that this shutdown only affects a very, very small number of agencies take away the sense of urgency that we might have seen in Congress in the past?
It shouldn't. I think we have to look at this as, how is this affecting people? We are heading into spring break, and many people are traveling. And so knowing that half or a dozen TSA agents are quitting because they're not being paid, knowing that the other side of the aisle is holding up funding for ICE that is not being impacted fiscally from this right now, does seem like TSA has become a political bargaining chip, and we are paying the price of that political bargaining chip and that token. And I think what needs to happen, and it doesn't matter who does it, is that they must come together and figure out a way to make sure that TSA is getting paid, that our flights are safe, and that we can continue business as usual, especially in a time where people are traveling more than ever.
This is for both of you. Will we see long security lines at the airport here in Indianapolis like we've seen at some of these other airports? Whitley, you go first.
I'm going to pray we don't, but prepare for long lines.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw an increase in the lines for commercial travel this coming season. I really hope it comes to a resolution quickly. It doesn't always work out to the consumer's best interest when there's a congressional fight over funding. And I think this time you'll see exactly that happening.
Turning to state politics, Lindsay, how big a deal is this life sciences incentive program that the governor announced?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's you saw a lot of support for this week. You saw quotes from President Whitten. You saw Lilly, obviously Elanco, all supporting this. But I think what we're not talking about is the fact that they've decided instead, along with the IEDC lines, aside from this important announcement, they've also taken back their comments that they were going to draw down the IEDC foundation work, which is something that they were under extreme pressure to call back, if you will. And that is not happening. And I think that's important also that we discuss. What we're not talking about right now out of the governor's office is just as important as what we are talking about.
Yeah, Whitley, to that point, is this a reversal on the governor's part that the foundation has not been shut down.
I don't think that it's a reversal on his part. I think we've seen since this administration has come in that when looking at the IEDC and the way that they operate and how they should be supporting regions around the state of Indiana, he's made some very, very strong moves to honestly gut a lot of what the IEDC was doing and to create a better path forward specifically for regions. So when we're looking at this $1 billion investment for regional economic development, this is a great thing. It's going to bring in high-paying jobs, hopefully over $100,000 jobs, which is projected over 10 years, which is a really great thing for Hoosiers. And allowing the regions to drive their own economic development as they know what's best, I think is great for Hoosiers.
All right. Whitley and Lindsay, thank you both for coming in this week. Good discussion as always, and we will be right back.
Thank you.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Wish TV.
And thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Be sure to check out our All Indiana Politics podcast. Besides full episodes, you can find extended interviews. You can find it online on our website at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.